Now, few had heard of him a year ago, and now he is set to become Africa's youngest president. The official results of Senegal's election are expected by the 29th of March, but provisional results show that opposition leader Bassirou Diomaye Faye, who's 44, is set to win. His extraordinary rise caps a rollercoaster period in Senegalese politics that caught many off guard. Months in jail alongside ally and kingmaker Ousmane Sonko ended suddenly, with the pair released the week before the presidential election. Now, Mr. Clean, as he's nicknamed, has promised to get to work on some sweeping reforms. Let's speak to our West Africa correspondent, Thomas Nardi. Just tell us a little bit more about Mr. Faye.
Well, Diomaye Faye is a 44-year-old tax inspector and a member of the disbanded Pastef Party, co-founded by popular opposition figure Ousmane Sonko. They were both imprisoned on separate charges and subsequently released just days before the election. And Ousmane Sonko was disqualified from contesting in the election because of a suspended defamation conviction. So Diomaye Faye was selected to replace him. He is known among his peers to stand for the principles of fairness, integrity and transparency. And he's already started speaking. He said that he will rule this country with humility and he will also fight corruption. His promise to reform the country's institutions and deal with challenges facing the youth, such as unemployment and the high cost of living. He made these remarks during his first public appearance after his main political challenger conceded defeat.
OK, thank you very much. That's Thomas Nardi for us there, our West Africa correspondent.
So that was President Biden. He offered his prayers. He offered his heart to the first responders who are currently working around the clock to try to rescue anyone if that possibility still exists. Also, President Biden saying we are going to rebuild this bridge together. We are going to reopen this port as quickly as possible. Hugely important. He talked about the hundreds of thousands of cars that go through there every year, the 15,000 jobs, the number of commuters who cross that bridge, and also whether Congress will step up and help, something else we heard from the president. But one of the key takeaways, Dagan, is congressional support for this effort. He wants Congress to step up and help as we rebuild this bridge and, of course, rebuild that port.
It's not unthinkable that you will see a special appropriation, as I was mentioning, after the I-35 West Bridge over the Mississippi in Minneapolis collapsed back in 2007. There was a relatively quick appropriation of about $250 billion. And Chris Van Hollen, the Democrat from Maryland, said today we are quickly working to address this situation, and that will be a sole focus of what Congress can do in response to this tragedy. And that bridge was rebuilt in a little more than a year.
Yeah, and Harris, another key news bit, he was asked, will you be going to Baltimore? And he said, yes, as quickly as I can.
Yeah, so different than how East Palestine, Ohio was dealt with. And you had an untold amount of victims in that. From the initial chemical explosion to the water being contaminated, the contamination in the air. You could smell it, you could taste it. People breaking out in rashes. They had lung problems. You and I were on the air weeks later saying how bad it was.
No one was. They were begging for the president.
That was February of last year, and the president just recently went February of this year. So expeditiously, he will go to Baltimore. Expeditiously, he did not go to East Palestine. I want to point this out, though, because I think this is going to be like the line that's remembered today. I do not have time to talk about the Rafah crossing. I do not have time to talk about Rafah. I tell you, those 110 or so thousand uncommitted votes across Michigan and Minnesota, are they listening? Yeah. This is politics for this man. You don't have time to talk about the one thing where people are protesting you? Amazing. I know it's not on point, but he answers questions all the time, he says.
And, you know, I mentioned this could be a press conference, Dr. Siegel. Perhaps it was presumptive because it was not a press conference, but he did take about 2 questions at the end, including from our own Mark Meredith.
No, but as Harris just said, he's eluding and evading the most important question in everyone's mind right now about the Rafah crossing, about Gaza. And then, of course, this bridge Of course, he's going to use that for political points, too. 12 million people cross this bridge every year. 12 million cars. It's a huge, huge problem. But it's just a skip and a jump from the White House for him to go there.
Yeah, and Emily, he reiterated this was not intentional. So we know not an intentional act, of course, as we've been hearing all day. And we're still awaiting an NTSB press conference where we hope to learn more.
That's right. And in the interim, our prayers and thoughts go out to that entire community, especially those first responders.
Absolutely.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.
Lisa, the other news that we have that just broke as we were coming on the air is a gag order from Judge Merchan here in New York City. What's this regarding?
So the DA's office had asked Judge Merchan to place a gag order on former President Trump with respect to his extrajudicial statements. That's a fancy way of saying anything he says outside of the courtroom. They asked for 3 categories of prohibitions. They asked for prohibitions on what he said about known or potential witnesses. They asked for prohibitions on what he could say about any counsel in the case other than Alvin Bragg himself, the elected district attorney, and any court staff, as well as any family members of those people that are made with the intent to or with the realization that they would interfere with the administration of justice. And finally, they asked that he be prohibited from making public statements about any prospective juror or juror in the proceeding. That's a recognition that just having an anonymous jury here through jury selection wouldn't be enough to protect the jurors. In this case, at least on my first look, everything that the DA asked for in that gag order, they got today with some really harsh words from Judge Merchan about the impact of Trump's statements on people outside this case and within this case so far.
Trump has appealed gag orders before, arguing that they violate his free speech, especially as he's running a campaign. Might we expect them to appeal this one?
We can definitely expect that they'll appeal it, and I think it will similarly fall on deaf ears because with each passing case, Trump accumulates a record of threatening participants in the judicial proceedings. It's held up so far at the D.C. Circuit. I also expect that a New York court will sustain this gag order.
Well, the D.C. Circuit gag order, though, was limited. It was scaled back a little bit. It remained in place, but it wasn't quite as broad as it was initially laid out. Am I wrong about that?
No, it was scaled back somewhat. But again, this is fairly modest. It's targeted with respect to 3 categories of individuals. And it talks not just about making statements. For example, Trump can make statements about witnesses in the case. What he can't do is make statements about them, I'm quoting from the order here, concerning their potential participation in the investigation or in this criminal proceeding. So can he say, I don't like Michael Cohen? Absolutely. Can he say that Michael Cohen is a perjurer and is likely to perjure himself in this case in his testimony? No, he cannot.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right.
Let me tell you that shares in Donald Trump's social media company have soared. As that company makes its formal debut on the stock market, shares passed $70 each, giving the firm a market value of more than $9 billion. Let's get more on this from New York, and we can talk to our North America business correspondent, Michelle Fleury. Excuse me. Michelle, he's got a lot of bills, I guess you could say, because of the various legal cases that he's wrapped up in, and also the small matter of a campaign for the White House. So this will be quite a welcome windfall.
Yeah, so this is Donald Trump's social media platform, which through a merger that was approved last week, that essentially paved the way for it to become a publicly traded company. And here we are, the first day of trading. And certainly, if you look at it, former President Donald Trump just became a lot wealthier, at least on paper. That's because shares in the parent company of Truth Social jumped by as much as 55% on its first day of trading. Right now, it's up about 46%. And what this shows is the popularity of this listing, despite the fact that in the first 9 months of last year, the company actually lost $49 billion. This listing has essentially captured the public's attention, I think it's fair to say. Many people buying up shares in the company to express their support for the former president, who, as you say, is campaigning to return to the White House. Trump, who has a majority stake in this, now is worth perhaps more than $5 billion just from the value of these shares. And he could sell some of this stock to try and help pay, as you point out, for his mounting legal bills, although he will have to wait because unless he gets a waiver from the board, he is barred from selling his shares for 6 months. One other thing to note, the stock is trading under the ticker symbol DJT, that's his initials. And so once again, Donald Trump is overseeing a publicly traded company.
OK, Michelle, thank you very much indeed for that. And around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.